Chapter 5. Fall is quickly turning the leaves beautiful shades of gold, red, and brown, signaling the approach of winter. It reminds John of his life on the family farm and remembers it as a time to lay in a supply of meat for the winter. That was a job he was good at, and he was anxious to help out as much as possible. "Greg, I want to do some hunting for a big fat deer. Time to stock up." "You don't want me to come along?" "Let me do this on my own. I want to pull my own weight around here. I won't be gone long. If I'm late for supper, don't worry about it. I'll take some jerky to get me by." He heads into the foothills, as this time of year the deer are down low feeding on the last of the summer grasses. He follows a draw that leads up to a spring where he was sure they would come for water. Finding a shelter spot overlooking the spring, he waits, keeping his rifle ready. Time drags on slowly, making it hard for him to stay awake. Suddenly the zing of a rope breaks the quiet and settles around his shoulders. Startled, he drops his rifle and thrashes against the rope. The ghost had managed to sneak up on him, without him even knowing they were there. "What do you want from me? I'm not bothering you, am I? You guys are just a bunch of cowards that hide in those sheets." With that, the wizard slams him up against the head with the pistol, knocking him out, unconscious. Night falls much earlier these days, and Greg wonders if John is caught in the dark. He should have been home by now. Finally, as the evening wears on, he decides to head to bed. No use going out to look for him, as he had no idea where he was. Morning would come before long, and then he would go look for him. Lying in his bed in the dark, he realized there would be no sleeping tonight. Finally, dawn breaks and Greg saddles his horse. He needs to make a plan so he isn't just riding in circles. First the foothills, as that's just the best hunting area, and he should have gone there. Back and forth he travels and finally runs across a large number of horse tracks, including ones he knows belong to John's horse. He was riding with someone, which didn't make any sense. He trailed them for several miles until the tracks took another direction, and the ones he was following dropped out. Circling back, he found where the riders had dismounted and left the open trail. Down in the bound and gagged. Down to the brush, he followed them until he ran across the boy, bound and gagged and tied to a tree, with his horse, grazing in a nearby meadow. "John, are you all right? Let me get that gag out of your mouth. Here, I'll cut these ropes for you." John, shaking his numb hands, says, "I thought I was dead. Those KKKs snagged me and knocked me out. They're mad at me for saving that little Negro girl." They're getting to be a real problem, not just for the coloreds, but for us all. We need to get into town and have a talk with the sheriffs. He's not much good, but he's all we got. Entering the outskirts of town, they head for the sheriff's office, which is in one of the first buildings they come to. They throw open the door to an empty room. Back in the cells, they can hear someone snoring. So they go to check out who's there. "Hey, back there, where's the sheriff?" A slow-talking, obviously drunk town bum answers with a slurred, "How would I know? I'm not his keeper. He's probably down at the local watering hole, if it's past noon. He's a worse drunk than I am, and I'm still the one behind bars. Ain't right." Greg drops off John at the mercantile to get supplies. He doesn't like taking him into a saloon as much as he's too young to see the seamy side of life. As he enters the dimly lit bar, he spots the sheriff sitting slumped over the table, with his head resting on his outstretched arms. "What a pitiful sight," he said. "Drunk already, and it's only in the middle of the day." As if a dark cloud lifted, he realized how stubborn he had been. The blacks weren't his enemy. They were the losers, having lost their homes and way of life. They were victims just as John was. Evil had no color. The KKK proved that. "Wally, has he been in that shape for that long? I didn't realize he was such a poor excuse for a sheriff." "Does the town council know about him?" "Yes, they do, but until someone volunteers to take his place, we have no choice but to keep him on." "You call a meeting and tell them that they have someone now. I'll do the job. Someone has to rein in these troublemaking KKK gang members." They kidnapped John last night and left him to die. No more. I've had enough of them. Great, Greg, I'll let him know. And I'll kick this drunken bum out of my place. On the way to town, Greg stops at the mercantile to fetch John. Hey, hey, George. Has this young fella been behaving himself? He's as polite as he can be and a real pleasure to have around. Are you headed home now? Yeah, that's the plan. I guess I better tell you I'm going to be the new sheriff in town. The council meets tonight. I'm pretty sure they'll appoint me. That no good you have now is as worthless as they come. That's the best news I heard in a long time. We sure need some law around here. Those night-riding KKKs have just about destroyed our little community. Go get 'em, Greg. John doesn't know whether to be proud or scared. He knows firsthand how dangerous those guys are. As they ride along towards home, Greg has a talk with his young friend. You know, if I do take this job, it'll mean you'll have more responsibilities around the farm. I can't do a decent job of sheriff if I have to worry about things at home. What do you think? I think if someone doesn't stop those guys, someone is going to die, and I sure don't want that to happen. I can take care of things at home. I owe you that, and I want to be able to carry my own weight. This gives me a chance to pay you back.